"You're not staying here," my sister said, standing in the doorway of Grandma's cabin, with my key in her hand. "Mom and Dad said this place is mine now." I smiled, set my suitcase down on the porch, and replied calmly, "Then I guess they should have read Grandma's will before changing the locks." I suppose I should explain how we got here, standing on opposite sides of a threshold that had always welcomed me home. I was the quiet one, the one who helped with dishes without being asked, who remembered birthdays, who called just to check in. Maya was the one who lit up rooms, who commanded attention, who somehow made her chaos feel like charm. Growing up, I learned to speak softly because Maya spoke loudly. I learned to need less because Maya needed everything. But Grandma saw me. Every summer from age 7 to 17, I spent 2 weeks at her cabin in the mountains. While Maya complained about the lack of cell service and begged to go home early, I helped Grandma tend her garden, learned to identify bird calls, and spent evenings on the porch listening to stories about our family's history. The cabin became my sanctuary, a place where being quiet wasn't a character flaw but a virtue. "You see things others miss, little bird," Grandma would say as we watched sunset paint the lake gold. "That's a gift, not a curse." When I turned 18 and started college, the summer visits became weekend escapes. When other students went to parties, I drove 3 hours to help Grandma winterize the cabin or repair the dock. Maya occasionally visited for holidays, arriving with dramatic stories and leaving with borrowed money. She'd complain about the outdated decor, the squeaky floors, the way morning mist made everything damp. "This place gives me the creeps," she'd announce. "Too quiet. Too isolated. I don't know how you stand it." I learned not to defend what I loved. It was easier. When Grandma turned 85, her independence began slipping away like morning fog. I started visiting every weekend without fail. I organized her medications, drove her to appointments, grocery shopped, and cooked meals to freeze. Maya sent flowers on birthdays and called sporadically, always with updates about her job, her boyfriend, her apartment, her needs. During Grandma's final months, I took family leave and moved into the cabin's spare room. I woke when she woke, kept her company through sleepless nights, read her favorite books aloud when her eyes grew too tired. Maya visited twice, once for Christmas, once because Mom guilt-tripped her into checking on us. "You're such a saint," Maya said during that last visit, the words feeling more like accusation than compliment. "I could never do all this caretaker stuff, it's too depressing." The night before Grandma passed, she held my hand with surprising strength. "The cabin will be yours someday," she whispered. "You've always loved it like I did. Promise me you'll keep the sunrise windows clean so the light can dance on the walls the way it's supposed to." I promised. 3 days later, Grandma died peacefully in her sleep. I found her that morning, sunlight streaming through those clean windows, illuminating her face like she was already becoming part of the light itself. The funeral brought relatives I hadn't seen in years, all suddenly eager to share memories and make sure they were included in family photos. Maya sobbed dramatically at the service, accepting condolences like she'd been Grandma's primary caregiver. Mom and Dad flanked her, the picture of a grieving family. I sat in the back row and said goodbye quietly. The will reading was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I expected nothing. Grandma had already given me everything that mattered in memories and love. But I attended out of respect, sitting silently while the lawyer read through bequests of jewelry and furniture and small amounts of money distributed among various relatives. Then he cleared his throat and read, "To my granddaughter Sarah, who understood that home isn't a place you visit, but a place you tend. I leave my cabin at 247 Lakeshore Drive, including all contents and the surrounding 2 acres, to be hers in perpetuity." The room went silent. I stared at my hands, hardly breathing. Maya spoke first. "That's impossible. She's too young to handle property taxes and maintenance. The cabin should stay in the family." "It is staying in the family," the lawyer said gently. "Miss Sarah is family." "You know what I mean." Maya's voice sharpened. "The cabin should go to someone who can actually afford to maintain it. Someone practical." Mom cleared her throat. "We'll need to discuss this as a family. Work out arrangements." I said nothing. I signed the papers, accepted the keys, and left while they were still arguing about arrangements. That evening, I drove to the cabin and sat on the porch until stars appeared. I could almost hear Grandma's voice in the wind through the pines. "You see things others miss, little bird." I saw that she'd chosen me deliberately. Not because I was the leftover daughter, but because I was the right daughter. But I should have known my family wouldn't let go so easily. I spent the next week handling funeral details, organizing Grandma's affairs, and fielding increasingly aggressive calls from my parents about family discussions and reasonable solutions. When Maya suggested we all share the cabin equally, I listened politely and said I needed time to think. What I needed was peace. So I packed a bag and drove to the cabin, planning to spend a quiet weekend processing my grief and figuring out next steps. Instead, I arrived to find cars parked in the driveway, music thumping from inside, and strangers drinking beer on Grandma's porch. Maya answered the door with a red Solo cup in her hand and guilt-free smile on her face. "Oh, Sarah, you should have called first. This is my cabin now." "Well, technically, but Mom and Dad think we should treat it like family property until everything gets sorted out. I'm just having a few friends over to celebrate Grandma's life. She would have wanted us to be happy here." Behind her, someone knocked over a lamp. Grandma's lamp. The one with the hand-painted shade featuring local wildflowers. "Everyone needs to leave," I said. "Don't be dramatic, it's just a little gathering." I looked past her into the cabin I'd helped preserve, now strewn with garbage and strangers. Someone had moved Grandma's reading chair to make room for a beer pong table. "Get out," I said quietly. "Excuse me?" "Get everyone out of my cabin, now." Maya laughed. "Your cabin? Sarah, be realistic. You can't afford this place on your salary. Mom and Dad already talked to a realtor about market value and property taxes. The responsible thing is to sell it and split the money, or at least let family members use it equally." "Get out." "You're being ridiculous." I pulled out my phone and started dialing. "I'm calling the police for trespassing." Maya's friends were already gathering their things, sensing trouble. Within 20 minutes, the cabin was empty except for Maya, who stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. "This isn't over," she said. "You can't just steal family property because Grandma was senile and felt sorry for you." After she left, I spent 3 hours cleaning up their mess. I restored Grandma's chair to its proper place by the window, swept up broken glass, and scrubbed beer stains from the wooden floors. When everything was clean, I sat in that chair and cried for the first time since Grandma died. Not from sadness, from rage. Monday morning, I called the lawyer who'd handled Grandma's estate. "They can contest the will," he explained, "but they'd need to prove your grandmother was mentally incompetent when she wrote it. Given that she updated it just 6 months ago during a routine legal review, and given her medical records showing clear cognitive function, they don't have grounds. The property is legally yours. What if they just take it anyway?" That would be trespassing and potentially breaking and entering. Document everything, change the locks, post no trespassing signs if necessary. I changed my phone number that afternoon. I left the family group chat. When Mom called my work phone, I let it go to voicemail. Her message was 43 seconds of guilt, manipulation, and demands for mature conversation. I deleted it without responding. Instead, I researched property management, security systems, and legal protections. I opened a separate bank account for cabin expenses. I contacted a locksmith, a cleaning service, and a lawyer who specialized in property disputes. Maya could have parties. I would have strategy. Over the following months, I visited the cabin every weekend, slowly restoring it to Grandma's vision while adding my own touches. I repaired the dock, updated the security system, and installed motion-activated cameras after finding evidence of trespassers. I worked quietly, telling no one my plans. The family stopped calling after 6 weeks of unreturned messages. I told myself I was relieved. Spring arrived early that year. I was refinishing the cabin's front steps when my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. "Sarah, thank God I got through. It's Maya." My hand tightened on the paintbrush. "How did you get this number?" "I called your... Listen, we need to talk. The family is planning a reunion at the cabin for Memorial Day weekend. Mom already ordered food and made reservations for everyone." "No." "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, no, the cabin isn't available for family reunions." "Sarah, be reasonable. It's been months. Mom and Dad are heartbroken that you've cut us off over a stupid inheritance dispute. We just want to honor Grandma's memory together. You can honor her memory at your own house. The cabin has always been the family gathering place. Not anymore. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer to discuss restraining orders. 3 days later, I got a text from Dad. We're coming up to the cabin Saturday to prepare for the reunion. Time to stop this childish tantrum. I responded, the property is posted. Trespassers will be prosecuted. He didn't respond. Saturday morning, I was drinking coffee on the porch when I saw the caravan of cars approaching. Dad's truck, Mom's SUV, Maya's sedan, and 2 cars I didn't recognize. They stopped at the locked gate I'd installed at the property line. I watched through my security cameras as Dad got out and examined the private property, no trespassing signs. Maya tried to climb the gate before realizing it was topped with decorative but effective anti-climb spikes. They spent 20 minutes arguing among themselves before Maya pulled out her phone. My phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. She called 4 more times. Then Dad tried. Then Mom. Finally, Maya sent a text. Open this gate right now or we're calling the police. I texted back, please do. I'll show them the property deed and trespassing documentation. An hour later, they drove away. That evening, Maya called from her personal number. You've lost your mind, she said without preamble. You're destroying this family over a cabin. I'm protecting what Grandma left me. She left it to the family. She left it to me. Specifically, by name, in writing. You can't just steal our memories. I'm not stealing anything. Your memories are yours, the cabin is mine. Mom is crying. Dad says he's never been so disappointed in anyone. You're killing them. I almost wavered. Almost. Then I remembered Grandma's voice. You see things others miss, little bird. What I saw was that Maya had never once called to ask how I was handling Grandma's death. Never offered to help with funeral arrangements. Never acknowledged that I'd spent a year caring for our grandmother while she lived her life unburdened. I'm sorry they're upset, I said, but the answer is still no. What if we paid rent? Market rate for a luxury cabin is $500 per night. $500? Are you insane? That's actually below market rate for a waterfront property with this much privacy. Silence. Then, fine, we'll pay it. I don't have any availability this summer. You're booking strangers instead of family? I'm building a business, in Grandma's honor. I hung up before she could respond. The truth was, I hadn't booked any strangers yet, but Maya's call clarified my path forward. That week, I filed paperwork to establish Sunrise Retreat as a limited liability company. I hired a website designer and began developing programs for grief counseling retreats, nature writing workshops, and mindfulness seminars. The business license arrived the same day. Mom finally drove up alone. I watched her through the security cameras as she parked outside the gate and sat in her car for 10 minutes before getting out. She looked older, tired. Part of me wanted to open the gate and make her tea and pretend we could go back to the way things were before. Instead, I met her at the gate. Sarah. She gripped the metal bars like she was in prison. Please. Can we talk? We're talking now. This is tearing the family apart. I didn't tear anything apart. I inherited property and chose to keep it. You know what I mean. Maya is devastated. Your father is, well, you know how he gets when he feels powerless. We just want to work something out. What kind of something? Maya's been going through a rough patch. She put money into some investments that didn't work out, and she was counting on, well, she had plans for her inheritance. Maybe you could sell the cabin and split the proceeds, or at least let us use it sometimes, for special occasions. I studied my mother's face and saw what Grandma had always seen, the way she centered Maya's needs without even realizing it. Maya was devastated. Maya was going through a rough patch. Maya had plans. What about what I'm going through? I asked. What do you mean? I spent a year caring for Grandma. I held her hand when she died. I organized her funeral while Maya threw a party in the cabin. I'm grieving too, Mom. But instead of supporting me, you're asking me to sacrifice what Grandma left me to make Maya feel better. That's not, we love you just as much as. Do you? The question hung between us like morning mist. Of course we do. Then respect my decision. The cabin is mine. I'm turning it into a retreat business in Grandma's honor. If you want to visit, you can book through the website like anyone else. At $500 a night? at whatever rate I choose to charge family members who spent months trying to steal my inheritance. Mom's face crumpled. How can you be so cruel? I'm not being cruel. I'm being clear. She left without another word. The business launched in July. My first retreat was Riding Through Grief. 8 women who'd lost parents, spouses, or children, gathering to share stories and find healing through words. I kept Grandma's favorite armchair in the main room, surrounded by her books and the photographs she'd treasured. The sunrise windows stayed clean, and light danced on the walls exactly the way it was supposed to. One participant, Eleanor, was 93 and writing letters to her deceased daughter. "This place holds love," she told me on the last day. "I can feel it in the walls." I thought about that comment for weeks. In August, I hosted a mindfulness retreat for overworked caregivers. In September, a writing workshop for people transitioning through major life changes. Each group brought their own healing energy, and slowly the cabin began to feel less like a monument to loss and more like a sanctuary for growth. Maya called in October. "I heard about your little business venture," she said. "Very cute. Playing therapist to strangers in our family cabin." "It's my cabin, and they're not strangers, they're people who understand that grief is sacred." "How much money are you making?" The question was so quintessentially Maya that I almost laughed. "Enough. Because I've been thinking, maybe we could be partners. I could handle marketing and bookings while you do the touchy-feely stuff. I'm much better with people than you are." "No. You haven't even heard my proposal." "I don't need to." The answer is no. You can't run a business by yourself. You're too introverted, too weird. People want someone warm and welcoming, not someone who hides in corners reading books. For the first time in our conversation, I felt truly calm. "Maya, the people who come here are looking for exactly what I offer. Quiet wisdom, thoughtful attention, space to heal without performance or drama. I'm not too weird for this business. I'm perfectly suited for it." "That's ridiculous." "Is it? Because I'm booked through next spring." Silence. "I have to go," I said. "I have a group arriving this afternoon." "Sarah, wait. What if I apologized for the party and everything? Would you consider letting us use the cabin for Christmas?" I thought about it honestly. Could I forgive? Yes, eventually. Did that mean I had to forget? No. Apologies don't come with conditions, I said. If you want to apologize, apologize. If you want to book the cabin for Christmas, check the website for availability and rates. You'd seriously charge us $500 a night to stay in our own family's cabin? It's not your family's cabin. It never was. It was Grandma's cabin, and now it's mine. I hung up before she could respond. Christmas morning, I woke in Grandma's bed, now my bed, and made coffee in her kitchen, now my kitchen. Snow had fallen overnight, transforming the cabin into something from a fairy tale. I sat in her chair, now my chair, and watched sunrise paint the lake rose gold. My phone buzzed with messages from my parents and Maya. Christmas wishes that felt more like obligations than affections. I read them without responding. Instead, I called Eleanor, the 93-year-old from my grief writing workshop. We'd become unlikely friends over the months, corresponding through handwritten letters like proper pen pals. "Merry Christmas, dear," she said when she answered. "Merry Christmas. Are you having a good morning?" "Wonderful. I'm writing another letter to Rebecca, telling her about the cardinal that's been visiting my feeder. What about you? Any family plans?" "Just me in the cabin. It's perfect." "Good for you. Sometimes the family we choose serves us better than the family we're born into." After we hung up, I spent the morning reviewing applications for my spring retreats. Business was growing faster than I'd expected. I was already planning expansions, additional workshops, maybe a writing cottage, partnerships with local therapists and spiritual guides. Around noon, a car pulled up to the gate. I checked the security cameras and saw a familiar sedan. Maya, alone. I walked to the gate, curious despite myself. "I brought you something," she said, holding up a wrapped present, a Christmas gift. "You can leave it there." Can't you unlock the gate? For 5 minutes?" I studied her face. She looked tired, older, less polished than usual. "Why?" "Because you're my sister. Because it's Christmas. Because I miss you." "You miss me or you miss having access to the cabin?" "Both," she said, and for the first time in years she sounded completely honest. "But mostly you." I unlocked the gate, She handed me the gift, a framed photograph I'd never seen before. Grandma and me on the cabin porch, taken during one of my teenage summers. I was reading aloud from a book, while Grandma listened with her eyes closed, smiling. "I found it in Mom's photo albums," Maya said. She was going through Grandma's things and she realized she didn't have any pictures like this with Grandma. Pictures where Grandma looked that peaceful. I traced the frame with my finger. "It's beautiful, thank you. Sarah, She stopped, swallowed, tried again. "I was wrong. About everything. The cabin, the inheritance, the way I treated you growing up. I was jealous of what you had with Grandma, but instead of trying to build something similar, I just dismissed it. Dismissed you. Why now? Because I've been miserable, because I realized that losing you hurt more than not getting the cabin, because I finally understand that Grandma chose right." We stood in silence for a moment. "I'm glad you understand," I said finally, "but understanding doesn't undo everything that happened." "I know. I'm not asking you to forget or pretend it's all okay. I'm asking, would you be willing to let me try to earn back some kind of relationship? Not to the cabin, just to you?" I looked at the photograph again. Grandma's peaceful face, my younger self absorbed in storytelling. "We could start small," I said. "Coffee sometimes, phone calls, see how it goes." "Really? Really? But Maya, the cabin stays mine. The business stays mine. That's not negotiable, I understand. And if you try to manipulate or guilt me again, if you bring Mom and Dad into it, if you make this about anything other than genuinely rebuilding our relationship, I'll cut contact permanently." I understand. I believed her. Not because she'd changed completely, but because she finally understood the cost of her choices. "Would you like to come in for coffee?" I asked. "I could show you what I've done with the place." Her face lit up. "Yes, please." As we walked up the path to the cabin, I thought about inheritance. Some people inherit money, others inherit houses or businesses or jewelry. I inherited something more valuable, the knowledge that love isn't about grand gestures or loud declarations. It's about showing up consistently, paying attention carefully, and recognizing what truly matters. The cabin had always been about love. Now it was teaching love to others. I unlocked the front door and gestured Maya inside. Sunlight streamed through the clean windows, dancing on walls that held decades of memories and endless possibilities for new ones. "Welcome to Sunrise Retreat," I said, and for the first time in years, the word welcome felt completely true.